I think it's in the best interest of most companies to try to negotiate shorter term leases because it's a changing world. It's also important that those data and analytics tell us a little bit about the kind of work that's being performed. Perhaps one of the most complex problems to solve when it comes to hybrid work, I would say it's scheduling. With the increase in return to office right now, the biggest risk is probably employee engagement. Look at the office as a strategic tool and bring people into the office when it makes sense based on the kind of work that they need to do.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Heroes of Hybrid Work. On today's pod, I'm very excited to welcome Kevin Smeltz, founder and CEO of SCG Hybrid Work Solutions, and a seasoned leader and management consultant. Kevin's extensive career spans leadership roles at HP, Wipro Technologies, Interdynamics, and PwC. Like us, he is very passionate about helping companies frustrated with the challenges of hybrid work and the modern workplace, including trying to balance the need for a healthy culture with a workforce that increasingly demands more flexibility, the impact of return to office policies on recruiting and retention, and designing offices that work with hybrid models. For all these reasons, Kevin joins us as a hero of hybrid work today. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
You got it. All right, so let's jump in. You clearly have an impressive career and you're deeply passionate about helping people with hybrid work. So how did your career path lead you here?
So it was mid-2020. The pandemic was in full swing, and I found myself in the uncomfortable position of being not billable at a Big Four consulting firm. So when the predictable event happened, I sat down with my brother, actually, with the intent of starting a company. We had no idea what we wanted to do, but we had four kind of criteria. One was it needed to be something that we were passionate about. The second, it had to be something that played to our strengths. The third is it had to align with our personal values. And fourth was it needed to contribute to society in some meaningful way. And so because we had a lot of experience in hybrid work, both being on teams and leading them, it didn't take us too long to get to a place where we decided we wanted to help companies to overcome the challenges of hybrid work.
That's incredible. And actually a passion that I share as well is helping people during their work days, because we spend more time at work than we do with our own families, unfortunately. So that's I think that's a really, really cool story. So, okay, you're here, you've decided on hybrid work, which everybody needs help with in this moment of crisis. But we find ourselves in 2024 with the debate being pretty much over. Nearly 70% of U.S. companies now offer some degree of work location flexibility. That's according to the Flex Index. This is here to stay, but the work to be done is really making hybrid work, which is what we're all kind of after at the moment. So one of the critical challenges that I see is establishing policies that really support business goals. So, now that you've been doing this for a while, you have clients, you have a lot of experience, where should organizations start when it comes to policy?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You mentioned that the debate is over, and yet we'll see in news headlines, one company or another that's 5 days a week back in office. Part of the reason for that is that no two companies are the same. They each have different business objectives. They each have different constraints. They each have different cultures. And so it's important to align your hybrid work strategy with your business realities, your goals and your constraints. So the place to start really is to understand what you want to get out of hybrid work, which in fact depends on what you want to get out of your business as an organization. So that's the place to start, Jenny.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I mean, at Sketa, the marketing team, we go in on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and we use that time very intentionally for collaboration, for brainstorms, for getting to know each other, lunches, really connecting. How How do you propose that teams go about this? Should it be decided at the team level, like many people are suggesting?
It depends. This kind of goes back to the point about every company is just a little bit different. For some companies, it works great to have a blanket policy across the enterprise. The advantage of that is it's a bit simpler to implement than a more team level policy. But for other companies, they find that that's not got all the advantages, perhaps, of a more granular approach. So it really depends on the company, but in general, we prefer to see at the team level. And the reason is that each team has a different dynamic. They have members in different places, they have different work that they do, and they have a different way of bonding with each other. So no one answer, but generally probably better at the team level.
How have you seen it impact talent acquisition and retention? Jeff Bezos said, we're all coming back 5 days a week, and so many people left, right? And, there's hypotheses to suggest he was really just trying to avoid the layoff and have people leave on their own. How have you seen this impact talent?
So there are two impacts, or two broad ways that it impacts talent acquisition and retention. The first is if your policies in general support some roles being fully remote, well, that opens up a much broader talent pool, and that makes it easier to recruit for maybe hard to find skills or critical roles that you have to fill quickly. The second impact is, and it's broader than just return to office, all of your hybrid work policies and all of the infrastructure that you put in place to support those policies impacts employee engagement quite significantly. And that in turn, of course, affects retention. So you need to get that right. If retention is a concern, you need to get that right.
Absolutely. Any examples come to mind in your work? Any of policy working or really not working?
Unfortunately, too often we see companies that put in policies that maybe weren't, maybe they're not well thought through, or maybe they are and not communicated well. But for whatever reason, employees can't get behind the policy. They don't understand it. They don't agree with it, whatever. So think a situation where I need to be in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays because my company has said that's the day everybody needs to be in the office. I go through the commute, which is painful for me, and get to the office, shuck off my winter coat, and then find a desk somewhere, which might be challenging, only to sit on Zoom calls for the whole day because the rest of my team is in a different city. That's not going to do much for employee engagement. So that's kind of a fail when it comes to, I'm likely to leave, more likely to leave certainly than if I'm happy going into work.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to keep it at the team level, because when your team's coming in, right? You have technology now to see who's coming in and when. That way you don't come in and you're sitting in front of a screen like we're doing right now. That seems like really purposeless. So I'm definitely with you there. Let's switch gears. So you've said before that traditional office layouts are often incompatible with hybrid work needs. So, very adjacent to what we were just talking about, what must organizations do to their office design to provide a great workplace experience with things like people coming in and nobody being there and other examples?
Mm-hmm. Several parts to that answer, I guess. The first is part of why it didn't work, or traditional offices don't work well with hybrid. Often there isn't enough collaboration space, enough focus space. There was a lot of attention given to density, a lot of cubicle farms, that kind of thing, that put a lot of people into a smaller footprint, mm-hmm. which made sense economically. But with the huge increase, I would say it's huge, increase in the amount of hybrid calls or the different kinds of work that we're doing now, it doesn't work because imagine you're sitting in a cubicle farm, you're on a Zoom call or a Teams call or whatever conferencing you use, and so are all your cube mates. that's disruptive. It's disruptive to you because you can't hear the person on the other end of the phone or the conference call. It's disruptive for the person on the other end because they're hearing a bunch of background noise. And it is a security and privacy issue because if you're having a sensitive conversation, then everybody else is overhearing it. That's one aspect. Another is conference rooms. Conference rooms often don't have the technology that's required to effectively support hybrid work. So the old office, not so much suited to the realities of hybrid work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Tell me a little bit more about the meeting rooms, because even, now if you go to a co-working space, for instance, it does seem like a bunch of cobbled together technology that never seems to work. It either works when everyone's in the office or when everyone's remote, but what is happening that we can't figure out how to get remote people and in-person people to all collaborate together in a meeting room? It seems like we're still far off from a solution there.
Yeah, I don't know the reason why necessarily, Jenny, but I do know that that I have clients that have technology that's subpar. I'm just going to say subpar in their conference rooms. And so what happens is audio gets like poor quality audio. So the person that's speaking, it's choppy, or you hear so much background noise, or the camera wants to zoom around and focus in on who's talking, but it doesn't do a good job of that. Or the people that are remote can't be heard well by the people that are in the boardroom. Like it's just an endless list of issues. And the sad part is that there is technology that does a much better job of that now. One thing that came out of the pandemic was a huge spike in the quality of the technology.
Yeah.
So the answers are there, and they are affordable, but
Yeah. Yeah. And so if, when you think of office design, what would you say is the number one thing people should be thinking about in a hybrid setting? What's the most important thing?
I would say matching the spaces to the utilization pattern. And that's huge because, first of all, you need to design the office in such a way that it is flexible. You need to consider things like acoustics, like lighting, like climate. You need to consider the physical properties. You need to perhaps have movable dividers in some situations and enough of these places. But to do that well and to maintain that going forward, it's also important to have the data and analytics that tell you how people are actually utilizing the space. And that will change over time. It's also important that those data and analytics tell us a little bit about the kind of work that's being performed so that we can best support that. It's much more dynamic than it used to be.
Absolutely. So just to skip over to this piece, what data and analytics are critical to make sure that you're optimizing your operations, but also maintaining the employee experience?
So with the advent of AI and the development in some of the analytics tools and even the hardware sensors that are used, we can now look at all the environmentals. So the acoustics, we can look at the lighting, the temperature, the oxygen content, all this kind of stuff, background noise. So those are important to have, and then we adjust those to optimize for the kind of work being done. A second piece of analytics would be the utilization. So how many people are in a given space and what are they doing at various times during the day and days of the week? Uh-huh. Also important to have integration with resource scheduling so that there are two kind of main approaches, I think, to scheduling these resources. One is that you schedule ahead of time. The second is to have an app that tells you where you're likely to find an available cubicle or an available office. And of course, there's mixes of those. So when you integrate that with the analytics, it's much easier to be efficient.
Yeah, and why is it important? I honestly, why is it so important to be so accommodating? I don't.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we have two sometimes competing goals. One is to keep our costs down. So we don't want to have tons of office space that we don't really need. But the second is to make sure that that office is used as a strategic tool, that it's helping people to do their job, that it's making them happy to go there and to do their work, rather than exactly the opposite and making them just wish they could stay at home and do their job from home. Ideally, there's a mix of both. There's a kind of work you do at home, and there's a kind of work you do in the office, but the office needs to be tailored to best support that.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit about the cost aspect of this. So, hybrid work is really shifting, from, it's causing organizations to shift from traditional long-term leases to much shorter ones. So how do you think about this? How should we be thinking about this?
Well, a couple of things. The first is that going forward, I think it's in the best interest of most companies to try to negotiate shorter term leases because it's a changing world, because the needs are going to change. So there has to be some flexibility. And right now is a good time to do that, I think, because I think that a lot of commercial real estate, landlords and so on, are a little bit more open to negotiating that right now, given the high vacancy rates. Let's suppose that you're in a long-term lease and you can't do anything about it for many years. That's okay too. We can use that space in more creative ways. If we can look at the office as a strategic tool and bring people into the office when it makes sense based on the kind of work that they need to do, but stay at home when they're doing something that's best done from home. If we reduce that utilization, now we free up some space. But if we can't shed that space, what do? We create better spaces. So we don't worry so much about the high density cubicle areas. We instead make lots of collaboration spaces. We make lots of breakout rooms. So make the office even better at doing that which people go into the office to do.
Yeah, I agree. What's going to help people with this shift in thinking when the economics aren't really working out? I think it's a great tip to, let's be creative. Let's make that very collaborative. Let's expand the lunchroom so that when people are in there, everybody can get together and talk. How do you help with the change management required? I think is my big question.
Yeah, so partly that is a time thing. People take time to adjust to the new normal, but it does happen over time. And as they do, it'll become just more of a standard thing to do hybrid work and to have these new spaces. But the second is evidence-based decision making. So there's we're 4 years on since the pandemic. So we have 4 years worth of studies and 4 years worth of data that tell us what the advantages of doing these things are. And it's overwhelmingly saying one thing, and that is that hybrid work done well has more benefits than it does downsides.
Yeah, I agree. Every day I see a study that leads to, more flexibility, leads to more productivity, leads to happier employees. Some of these, mandates coming from the top that really aren't working. People are disgruntled, right? So I totally agree with you there. That's why I say the hybrid work debate is over. I know it's a little bit forward, but I really do believe that that's true. So with everything we've talked about, thank you so much, by the way, policy, office design, technology, even real estate, what future trends or predictions do you see in the modern workplace, and how can we ready ourselves to adapt to these trends?
Well, we've already kind of touched on one of them, and that is, I think there's going to be, there might be a little bit of a pendulum effect. There might be initially more return to office and going back to the old way of doing things. But I don't think that's long term. I think it will settle out and reach an equilibrium. And I think that will actually be with more hybrid work than there is today. So that's just because the benefits are there. It's just taking people time to adapt to it and to think about work in a different way. A second trend, if we look at what is perhaps one of the most complex problems to solve when it comes to hybrid work, I would say it's scheduling. There are many factors to be considered when scheduling meetings, when scheduling resources, when scheduling whether I'm in the office or not. For example, I'd like to know where my teammates are. I need to know where my teammates are located geographically, if they're in a different city, or if they could perhaps come into the office to meet me. I want to think about my commute and how that's different on different days of the week or times of day. So that's much too much data to analyze when I'm scheduling a meeting. But with AI and some of the tools that are becoming available, I think it will go a long way to solving that problem, make it much more easy to schedule effectively. And so that will be an enabler of increased hybrid work.
Yeah, I agree. I continue to read about the hybrid coordination tax, right, that we all
Yeah,
pay, which is actually causing a lot of lack of productivity. So, seeing the whole world through the hybrid lens and being intentional about it, I think I agree is the solution here. And, a plug here for SCG that allows you to see, that has integrations with Teams and Slack and allows you to see who's coming in, when, and where they're sitting, is really useful and does take away a lot of that administrative work and the hybrid coordination tax that we do talk about often.
absolutely.
Thanks, Kevin. So let's see, what else? I want to, something I always love to kind of end with is, you came to this podcast and you wanted to say something, but maybe I didn't ask the right question to get it out of you. Is there something you want to leave our listeners in summary?
I guess if there's one thing, I would go back to one of the very first points that we discussed, which is every company is different. There's no one answer here or one tool or one set of tools that works best for everybody. So to do this well, each company needs to invest in a comprehensive hybrid work strategy, and that's what we do. And that gets them a bunch of benefits. It gets them, comfort that they don't have risks lurking because there are many risks involved with hybrid work. And it gets them the satisfaction or the confidence to know that they're getting all the benefits that they can out of hybrid work. So invest in the strategy. That'd be my key message, I think.
I love that. And I kind of have a follow-up, which is, what is the biggest risk that you see?
Like everything else about this conversation, I guess it depends on the company, but I would think that probably with the increase in return to office right now, the biggest risk is probably employee engagement, because that affects attrition, and that's expensive, and that impacts employee engagement and productivity, which is also expensive. So I would say that's probably the biggest risk.
Thank you. So, last question. So, I know you have a framework for doing hybrid well. Where can our listeners learn more? How can we share this with them?
So probably the easiest way is either email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. We also have a website, scghybridwork.com. And what'll happen is I'll take a couple of minutes to explain the framework and the problems that it solves. And then you can decide whether you want to carry on a conversation about whether or not we might be able to help you.
Excellent.
Not a big sales pitch.
None needed, none needed. Excellent, Kevin. Well, it was a huge pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think you shared a lot of valuable insights with our listeners. And take care.
Thanks very much, Jenny. It's been a pleasure.